In the world of modern football sims, one game in particular has achieved legendary status. But is this game really the greatest football game of all time? Or has it become a legend because of how mismanaged EA's Madden series has been for years? I read all the time about how the NFL 2K series was clearly better than the Madden series. It's gotten to the point where the game is almost like a myth. But was everything really better back in 2005? Well, there's only one way to find out. Let's dive in. EA Sports and the Madden NFL series have had a monopoly on football games for 20 years now. And the reviews of the latest Madden games have been less than stellar. You really don't have to look hard to find negative reviews. Commercial reviews tend to be lukewarm to positive. However, the user reviews, the reviews written by actual gamers, those simply rip the game to shreds. And with this state of things, people all over the place are clamoring for the return of a certain legendary franchise. It's been like this for years. It's gotten to the point where each new Madden game is just another money grab, and every new release is accompanied by all sorts of YouTube videos showcasing broken features and ridiculous animations. But have you ever wondered how in the world we got to this point, and have you ever thought about what we should do to fix the problem? Now, if you go back far enough, you'll notice that licensed football games were a rare thing. Card and dice football simulators tended to use real player names. In hindsight, it's not entirely clear whether they technically had permission to do so or not. Older computer football games like XOR NFL Challenge didn't originally include player names. If you play it today though, the names are there. People have patched the game over the years. Now, one of the reasons why Tecmo Super Bowl was so popular is because it included both the NFL and NFLPA licenses. There were some players with generic names, of course, but only a couple. In fact, one reporter discovered a few years back that the NFLPA probably didn't have the ability to legally license players to Tecmo for the old NES game. But that's all a bunch of legal mumbo-jumbo. The point is that Tecmo Super Bowl had the real teams and the real players, and honestly, for most football fans, that's all that we want. As long as it's a playable game and has the real names and the real players, it will sell. Fast forward to the mid-1990s and you'll notice that there were football games everywhere. Some games had only one license. Some games had the other license. In hindsight, it's actually pretty confusing. However, with so many games on the market, there was a lot of room and incentive for innovation. The truth is that the mid-1990s was a golden age for football games. But it didn't last. Of course it didn't. And, well, that's really frustrating. The 3D era started largely with Madden Football 64, though the game did not have an NFL license. Madden NFL 99 did have the license and came out on the N64 in September 1998. Of course, the more famous version is the PlayStation version that came out in August 1998. But there was a problem. You see, there were no plans to port that game or any future Madden game to the Sega Dreamcast, which came out in late 1999, and that meant that there was room for a competitor. Sega's NFL 2K was a launch title for the Dreamcast in North America, releasing on September 9, 1999. It generally got positive reviews. Now, it seems that the purpose of this game was to fill the gap in the market left by EA's decision not to release its Madden series on the Dreamcast, and the titles of these reviews really say it all. The Dreamcast, of course, was a system with a bad fate. It was a system born under an unlucky star. Its fans love the system to this day, and it still has a really strong following. But the Dreamcast simply could not compete when the PlayStation 2 came out, and it was discontinued in March 2001 after being on the market in the United States for only about 18 months. The NFL 2K series, however, lived on. NFL 2K2 came out in September 2001 on the Dreamcast, PlayStation 2, and Xbox. It's interesting that there even was a Dreamcast version since the system was officially discontinued by that time. Anyway, 2K2 made it clear that 2K Sports was more than happy to compete with Madden across numerous platforms. It wasn't the only competing football game either. The NFL Game Day series by 989 Sports came out with PlayStation 2 games until NFL Game Day 2004. The final game in that series, Game Day 2005, only came out on the original PlayStation and predictably was a failure. NFL Fever 2004 and the Xbox marked the end of Microsoft's attempt to compete with Madden through first-party sports games. And so NFL 2K5 wound up basically being Madden's only remaining football competitor. Competition is important. The innovations that we've seen in the football games over the years have all come because of competition. And 2K5 had the Madden series in its crosshairs and really was a force to be reckoned with. You can see the amazing presentation quality right from the start. Everything looks like an ESPN football broadcast. And when you play the game, it really feels like you're watching a game broadcast. Not every play is a replay, and the replays that come up seem to make sense, and they use sensible camera angles. The same is true for statistic reports. They make sense, and they only come up when necessary. Now, I've talked a lot about how great the halftime show is for the original Tecmo Super Bowl for obvious reasons. The halftime show for 2K5, however, is also fantastic. The only real drawback is that there are no video highlights. Instead, all you get are these still pictures. But it's still an incredibly professional and realistic looking presentation. And that helps a lot with the immersion. Sure, these are PlayStation 2 graphics and this game is 20 years old, but once you get past the polygons and some of the silliness, you'll realize that this is a game that is really easy to get sucked into. But the best part isn't the presentation, it's the gameplay. I'm not sure I have the right words to explain the control scheme. It just feels right. It feels natural, actually. I was able to jump in completely cold, having never played the game before, not even the tutorial, and figure things out within about a minute. Running is a dream because it's easy to follow your blockers. The blocking schemes are predictable and they actually make sense. Passing is nice, though I did find myself having to settle for a few blind passes now and then. It takes a while to get used to the difference between a lob pass and a bullet pass, for example. I had a number of passes intercepted because I didn't push the button quite right. But once you learn how to do a few things and get a handle on it, the control scheme really isn't that bad at all. And I'm not just talking about the original PlayStation 2 controller. If you're on PC like I am and you've got to use one of these things, the controls, they still feel right. And the controls, of course, are probably the most important part of the game. Let's go back to Football Pro 95 for a second. The controls in that game are stiff at best. It's got that frustrating Sierra Entertainment feel. It's sort of like you're playing Space Quest. Now, one of the reasons why Tecmo Super Bowl and the NES is so popular after 35 years is because the controls are just fantastic. You never find yourself blaming bad controls for something going wrong. In fact, the Genesis version is even better. The original Tecmo Super Bowl on the Genesis is probably the best feeling football game on the system. Everything feels just natural. You know what to do right away. That's the sort of feeling NFL 2K5 gives you. Now, there are some things I still need to work on, like tackling. The in-game tutorials are kind of helpful, and the game is pretty forgiving if you really screw things up. But all in all, it's really the great control scheme that makes this game an all-time classic. But of course, most people don't talk about play control when they talk about 2K5. No, most people talk about the extras, and I mean there are a lot of extras. I've only dipped my toes into franchise mode and I'm already overwhelmed. The player trading and roster management features are top-notch. It feels like I'm playing OOTP, to be honest with you. There also is a really complex and detailed training feature that is honestly probably too advanced for me at the moment. I mean, you can tell your players what muscle groups to exercise. I wound up just turning it off to focus on the gameplay. It's more complex in this sense than games like Football Manager, which are famous for their complex and intricate training systems. It also doesn't entirely make sense. After all, a good weight training strategy means complete workouts that you do consistently. You're not going to just hit a certain muscle group on Monday and then suddenly become stronger at a certain thing for Sunday. It doesn't work that way. But it still is a nice touch, and it's something that you don't see much of in today's games. Now, the crib is one of those things that fans really love. It's not really a crib, it's a full house, and I think it's actually bigger than my real house. You can use your in-game points to buy stuff to put in. And you can actually do stuff in the house like watch game footage and other things. In other words, it's not just a trophy haul that you never really look at. It's almost like it's a completely separate game. This is a fantastic feature and it makes you want to spend hours and hours just messing around in the game. 2K5 was really ahead of its time with features like that. Now, most people will just want to jump into franchise mode and play a season. However, you can also go back through classic NFL scenarios. This is a collection of 25 famous NFL scenarios to commemorate the 25th anniversary of ESPN, which of course was 20 years ago. So, for example, I tried to play as Green Bay in the Ice Bowl to beat the Cowboys. The weather is great and the controls feel just right. But of course, all the play calls are modern play calls. There's no real pack or sweep here. Anyway, I wound up going to the passing game once too often and didn't really have much success.
One man to beat, no one in front of him.
I'll have to practice a little bit more to beat this one. If you want a really easy one, go for the longest playoff game ever, which really should be called the Epic in Miami. You are the Chargers, and you have a 24-0 lead at the start of the second quarter that you have to hold on to. Now, I found this to be incredibly easy. The online strategy guides I read recommended simply pounding the rock on the ground with the Chargers. However, you have to remember that Dan Faust was a great passer and that you can gobble up yards in the air like it's nobody's business. I was able to hit number 80, Kellen Winslow, anytime I wanted to. I'm not quite sure who number 86 is supposed to be, but he was a favorite target as well. As you can see, there's no number 86 on the roster, not at least according to Pro Football Reference. Anyway, there were some bizarre things like us scoring a safety after throwing an interception and forcing a fumble. This probably should have been a touchback for Miami, but I'm not complaining. But the thing that really struck me about playing in this mode is just how good the game looked. The vintage uniforms look simply awesome, and it's tons of fun to play. In fact, I want to play more of these scenarios. More games should do historic scenarios like this. I don't understand why more strategy-focused football games don't come up with these historical scenarios. It seems that it would be pretty easy to set up after all. Anyway, the biggest question about 2K5 is probably what in the world happened to it. And the answer is kind of sad. You see, 2K Sports decided to rush this game out ahead of Madden 2005. The game was released on July 20th, 2004. 2K5 also only cost $19.99 new, which was a pretty aggressive pricing tactic. Madden, meanwhile, cost $29.95, which is still insanely cheap when you think about it. The legend has it that EA began negotiating with the NFL for an exclusive contract in response. And that's where the exclusive deal comes from. Now, in hindsight, it probably wasn't a great idea for 2K to start a price war. Sure, it made fans happy, but honestly, this game is good enough to stand on its own without extremely aggressive pricing. And maybe playing ball and not being so aggressive would have deterred EA from pushing for that extreme contract. And honestly, when you compare the two games, you start to see that controversy come up. You see, most contemporary magazines recommended Madden. GameSpot was an outlier, concluding that 2K5 was superior due largely to the presentation. The mainstream magazines, though, continued to tout Madden as the king of the football games. Now, is that fair? I don't know. There have been rumors of backroom deals and other shenanigans in the video game journalism industry for decades now, and most of you already know that. In fact, the best way to settle the debate is to sit down, play the games for a while, and seriously compare them. If you look at user reviews on sites like GameFAQs, you can see that controversy. There are some who absolutely love 2K5. Others are not quite as impressed. And the same goes for Madden 2005. Even on more recent Reddit threads, you'll see the debate continue. The truth is that 2K5 was probably not clearly a superior game to Madden, even though we remember it that way. And frankly, I think the reason why we remember 2K5 as some sort of mythical super game is because it's back when there was competition. You see, that's what the industry really needs. We need to have more than one good football game instead of trying to force everybody to play the same one over and over. The same game, I might add, that hasn't been on a system like the Nintendo Switch at all. I mean, how come nobody came up with an NFL game for the Switch? Does that market not count? Anyway, 2K5 is a seriously good game. Based on what I've played so far, I would easily say that this is my favorite 3D football game. There are a few things that concern me, though they're mostly minor annoyances. And I honestly can't say if it's better than Madden 2005, not until I actually play a bunch of that game and have some basis for comparison. However, I do believe that it's better than the current Madden games. This is because the Madden series keeps taking steps back. Now, is 2K5 one of the best football sims of all time? Can it compete with Super Tecmo Bowl and arcade quality? Or is it just a nostalgia piece that tends to be overrated? Well, that's a much harder question to answer. I'll leave that one up for you to decide. Let me know what you think down in the comments.